Hello, Bill Molyneux here with none other than Goober the Traveling Bear. And we are at the Mathews Museum in Mathews, Virginia. And we have been told there is a new Women's History Month exhibit. Women in Business Month. Enjoy a glimpse of the past. 4 centuries of ladies' fashion from the 1600s to the 1900s. All right, well, Goober says let's go check this place out. Last time we were here, they had a wonderful quilting exhibit. And they have Come and Celebrate the Feast of St. Patrick at the Kinston Parish Hall in Mathews, Sunday, March 15th. All right, let's go inside and see what this new exhibit has to offer. Well, we are here at the museum in Mathews, and Goober the Traveling Bear says, Mr. Tom is here. Mr. Tom, can you tell me about your museum and your exhibit this month?
We sure can. For those of you that have seen videos before, you've seen we're changing exhibits all the time here at the Mathews Museum. And this is the Ladies' Month. It's National Women's Month. So we have a collection of ladies' fashions from the 1600s through to 1900.
Would you like to show Goober and I? We can go down the line?
Yes, this is a typical dress from the 1600s. And with linen, and they had the bustle in the back. They called it a bum roll. And you should have ladies doing this rather than a guy here. But we go to the 1700s, and the dresses were changed a little in that instead of having the bum roll all in the rear, they had them on the sides.
Okay.
And then this is a typical man's dress for upper middle class in the 1800s.
Okay.
We thought we'd throw a little testosterone in there along with all the ladies' garments. And this was sort of like Gone with the Wind. This is a beautiful silk ballroom gown.
Okay.
From the 1800s.
And that's what they call the hoops, right?
That's right. That is the hoop skirt.
Okay.
And this is from the Victorian period, right around 1900.
Oh, Goober has a question, sir.
Certainly.
On this green dress, we noticed that waist is incredibly little. Is that how do they crunch that in there?
They called them whalebone corsets, and they had like strings on your shoes. They would tie them. You'd probably have somebody in the rear pushing them on the back and pulling those strings tight until they could barely move. And they wanted to look good going out. And then they would end up taking it off and pretty well explode after if the strings didn't break. Most of the houses at that period actually had a room at the top of the stairs called a fainting room. And they had a couch in there, and the ladies would go up. They were ready to pass out because they were so constricted in these tight waisted dresses that they would go up and they would lay down before they passed out.
Wow. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We'll continue down the line, but Goober just was curious about
Sure.
that. Thank you, sir.
And again, a Victorian, just a day dress, a simple day dress of that period.
Now, is that a cotton material or
yes,
linen?
It is. A lot of lace and cotton.
Wonderful. What's this cabinet next to you, sir?
This is a collection of items that have been excavated in the Mathews area. The clay pipes and pieces of pottery, wine, beer jugs, and so forth. This is something new we just got. It's not from Mathews. It's actually from Chesterfield County. But this is an axe head that was just excavated at the Falling Creek Forge. And you say, why do you have something in here from Chesterfield? Well, we can't move it. We can't have everything here just in Mathews. We'd like to have Mathews people be able to see things from other areas. This axe head was just donated last week to us. And the Falling Creek Forge was destroyed in the Great Indian Massacre of 1619. So this was made prior to
Well, let
1619
me get a little closer for that. So this is 1619 or
or
earlier.
earlier.
Uh,
And the mate to it is in the Chesterfield Historical Museum. So even though it's not from here, it's certainly a part of Virginia's past.
well, what would you like to show me next in your wonderful museum?
Well, I don't know if you've seen our musical instruments before. These are two instruments from Confederate bands, and the bugle on the left. When I got that originally, it was black. It was smashed completely flat in three pieces. And the story that went with this, it took 2.5 years to have this restored. The last time this was played in public was played to blow assembly to call the troops together for the fall of Richmond, April 5th, 1865. And the bugler, who was older than most buglers, he was in his mid-teens, but he was actually married. And he stomped it. He played assembly as the troops were getting ready to move to Danville. He threw it on the ground and stomped it and said, "The war is over, all is lost. I never want to hear a bugle again." And his wife picked up the pieces and wrote down what he said, thinking it would be something that people should remember. And as the troops went to Danville, he and his wife walked home to Hanover Courthouse. But him actually being AWOL, even though it was only a few days before the war ended, uh, they wanted to keep his name out of it because his name is enshrined in Chesterfield Courthouse as a Confederate hero. And this cornet, this was given to me many years ago, saying that it came from a Confederate band. Well, I'm a trumpet player, and I said, I don't think so because this has vertical valves on it. The old cornets had rotary valves. And so I never thought this really was a Civil War instrument until I went to the Gettysburg Museum, and there's the identical cornet there, saying it was the first vertical valved cornet. And this was captured from a Union unit uh, because when the war started, the only people that had brass instruments were the North. They were very expensive, and they were just starting to be imported from Europe in the 1840s and 1850s. So the Northerners had the advantage of having bands for recruiting activities. The South didn't have that. So the only way they could get bands to get morale built up was to attack Union units that had bands. And they would capture the men and the instruments, take the men as POWs, and have them teach them how to play. So the Confederate bands were notoriously bad musicians because they had not had years of practice like some of the Northern units did. But there are two interesting instruments there. And
Very nice. What's over here? Goober says it looks like you have more exhibits this way.
well, things are changing in here in that this building started out as a Texaco gas station in 1936. And it had gas pumps out front, and it slowly changed to include a car dealership. It was a Plymouth and Dodge automobile dealership in here. That didn't last but so long, and it became a bowling alley. And I'm getting ready to put the bowling balls and the pins on here. It was a duck pin alley, had 3 lanes, and the old Bijou Alley sign, if you look close at it, it's an original Dodge Plymouth sales and service porcelain sign they just painted over. And there are photos when it was a bowling alley here, and the photo on the left and right.
Oh yeah.
And then it was the first offices of what is now called Dominion Energy. Before that, it was Virginia Electric and Power, or VEPCO. And before that, when electricity first came to Mathews about 1935, it was East Coast Systems. And this was the electric office in here. People would come in and get their electricity hooked up and pay their bills here. And then it became Virginia Electric and Power. So then it later became an appliance company called Bassett Music and Gas, which is an unusual name for an appliance company. But they sold all different appliances, and plus Victrolas, television sets, radios, things like that. And it has been so many different things. The craftsman shop, they sold paint, they sold yard goods. Um, it it was a watch repair facility. It was a beauty parlor. It's been so many different things in here.
And now you're a museum, and I see you have some spinning wheels here, huh?
Different types of wheels. You had traveling wheels. You had wheels for flax, and your walking wheels. They all had different purposes and different materials. Um,
Now, which is the oldest of these?
you know that I don't know. They're all about the same age, in the 1800s,
Well, you have a little.
early to late 1800s.
Well, is there what else would you like to show me in your wonderful museum here in Matthews?
Well, people are so used to modern appliances, and we talk about the evolution of appliances here. You had your old gas cook stove that most people had back then, and they were great in the wintertime. They provided your cooking surface and they provided heat for your house. This is interesting. The warming cabinet on this actually has a bullet hole in it. The bullet hole in the back, someone shot through the building and came and lodged right here. Uh, People would complain because these would heat the house up so much in the summertime. They wanted to go to another form of cooking, but there was no electricity and propane didn't come out until the 60s. So they were forced to go to a kerosene cook stove. This is 1921. It came out of the Gwynn post office. And if you know how a single kerosene lantern smells in your house, imagine what three burners would smell like. And the oven, if you put a pie in your oven and the ovens on these just set over top of a burner, imagine what your pie smelled and tasted like, or anything cooked in here. It was not the greatest form of cooking utensil. And we go on to the refrigeration. Your old oak ice box. This is what everyone went to, all different sizes. And this is a small one. And then they later went to a real refrigerator. And this old thing is almost 100 years old now. And it's called a GE monitor. The monitor top looks like the monitor ship.
Right.
And that's why I got that name. And it's still listed. It remains the most recognized and most dependable refrigerator ever built. They never broke down. They never leaked. People got rid of them because they wanted something more modern. But interesting thing about this, if you come in today with arms full of groceries and you want to put them away in your refrigerator, how do you open it? Well, 100 years ago, you just hit a foot panel and the door opened.
Now, could you do that again for my viewers with your foot?
Sure.
So you're going to hit little foot
You hit your foot pedal and the door popped open.
Opens. Now why don't we have that nowadays?
It seems like it would be a smart thing to have nowadays. This is like brand new inside. It has not been refinished. This is all original. The old original ice cube trays, the metal, and the little ice boxes that you kept your food in, and this is the freezer part.
Now, the monitor part on top, is that what has the Freon?
This is, well, they didn't use Freon. They used methyl formate and sulfur dioxide. They didn't use Freon like the modern ones. And maybe that's why they work better and didn't leak different type of gas. And when we talk about other household chores, your washing machine, when these were hand cranked, this is from 1881, and you had your dasher in there and you would have to wash your clothes like this. And then that evolved into the gasoline washing machine. The Maytag company made these washing machines as cast aluminum, but still very heavy. And for those communities that did not have electricity, they had gasoline motors, and you could switch them out with electric motors if and when you got electricity. This was not a very good washing machine, and Maytag got a lot of complaints because of the square design. It did not wash clothes so well, it beat them up because it pushed them in the side and they got beat up a little bit. So Maytag came out with different accessories, not to make him wash any better, but they had accessories. You could take this dasher out and you put another accessory in, and you made homemade ice cream. So it became an ice cream freezer, very similar to the little one right here, but on a larger scale. And if you didn't need to make ice cream, suppose you wanted butter. You take it out, put another one in, and it became a butter churn. And while we were at the Rockingham County Fair, they were demonstrating this identical machine with a gasoline motor, and they were making butter. And they made 5 pounds of butter. We bought a pound of it, just to say we got butter made in a Maytag washing machine. And here are a collection of different butter churns, from small ones up to very large ones. And here in the corner, this is an unusual piece that most people can't identify. Very simple stool. The ladies, this was a lady's stool, and the ladies would sit in it and they would grab both handles and they would yell a lot. This was a birthing chair. This was the angle, they said, is the best angle for having a baby. Of course, that came from the men that designed it, and I don't know what they know, but that is an old 19th century birthing chair. And we have lots of small appliances that people don't think about today. This is one of my favorites. This is from, came out of 1918, and self-contained full kitchen here. You had saucepans. You could cook a steak on top of this. You take the side, you put your bread in and make your toast. Your frying pan, and everything would go on top here. And you can make poached eggs. You take this out and you put the top on, and you put it back in, and you would bake your cake. This could be used for so many different things. It seems like this would be something that would be very, very popular with college students today in college dorms where you don't have a lot of room. So this is a very interesting appliance, and it still works like a new one.
Very cool.
All aluminum.
I'll pause the camera here, and we'll get organized for our next segment.
Okay.
Mr. Tom, what's the significance of this chair you have here?
Well, most people call it the Campeche chair, but it's from, it originated in Mexico, in Campeche, Mexico. So it's actually the Campeche chair. There are many stories about it. We don't know how many are true or if any of them are true, but this was discovered up in the attic of the old Mathews courthouse many years ago. And it is identical to the chair that Thomas Jefferson's enslaved cabinet maker, John Hemmings, made at Monticello. Same wood, same construction. It's no guarantee that it was made there, but no one is alive that knows where it came from. And they sent it to Monticello for study, and it stayed there for quite a long time. It recently came back to our county, and we got the Board of Supervisors to agree to give it to the museum here so it could be displayed and protected rather than being stuck up in the attic of the old courthouse. So it's made in the early 1800s, originated again in Campeche, Mexico. Jefferson got one of them because he said it was the only chair he felt comfortable in because he had arthritis and rheumatism, and he used it to do his writings. So the identical one at Monticello looks just like this, and they're actually making reproductions there, which are selling for $3,000 each. And we thought we'd put this on display and just tell what we know about it. One of Thomas Jefferson's friends had two of them. He went to William and Mary, and one of his chairs was missing. And we said, could this be one? We're not that far from William and Mary, and to end up in Mathews. So there are a lot of stories that could be made up about it, but we have no answer to actually where it came from and where it went and why it was stored up in the attic of Mathews Courthouse for so many years. But it is historic, again, about 200 years old.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tom. Mr. Tom, where are we heading to next?
We're going into Tom Hunley's Country Store.
Wow.
Tom Hunley was a justice of the peace here in Mathews, and he was also a meter reader for what became Dominion Energy, but at that time it was East Coast Systems, and this was the office of East Coast Systems that provided electricity. As he would read meters at the general stores, about that time, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company came to town, the A&P grocery store. Well, that was a big difference in those days, like Walmart coming into town today. Uh, it tended to put the other smaller businesses out of business. So as the old general stores were going out of business, they would start throwing away merchandise, things they couldn't sell. And Mr. Hunley would say, "Don't throw that away. This could be something we should save for the future here, so that people know what it was like to be in a general store." So he started collecting the things that these general stores were discarding, and he built a general store in his backyard, about twice the size of this. And we've got this much stuff up in our storage that we could put in here, but it's just not enough room. But his son, Ray Hunley, who's a new member of our board, I gave him free reign to come in and reconstruct his father's country store in here with the merchandise. It was showing how things have changed, and the mindset. We had a school class in here, and the school teacher came in, and there were two young boys standing here looking up at this, and she looked up in horror and said, "Get away from that, it might go off." And I looked at, what do you mean? She said, "That gun, what kind of gun is that?" I said, "That's a telephone." And I started thinking that nowadays, and she was just in her late 20s, she'd never seen this before, had no idea what it was or how it worked. And then we started thinking, we had high school kids in here. The only thing they know are smartphones. They don't know what our old rotary dial phones like or anything like that. So we're going to be doing a new exhibit on the evolution of telephones.
And would you mind telling our viewers how that works in case we do have someone that's curious?
How this would work, someone? You would ring this, and that would let the operator on a switchboard that would send a signal, and you would pick this up, and you would listen in this. You would talk in here, and you say, "Mabel, get me number 329, or get me Joe's Barbershop," or whatever, and she would put the line in the slot, and she would connect you with your calling party. Of course, this was when there were only 1 or 2 or 300 phones in the whole county. So it was easy for one operator to make these calls. And you had the calls were on a party line, and that when you call somebody, the phones, because of the few lines they had, people had to share them. So that if you picked up your line to make a call, once you got a regular phone, after these, when you got your dial-up phone, you would pick it up and you hear somebody talking on the other end, and you'd say, "Can you get off in a hurry? I've got a phone call to make. It's an emergency. Please hang up." And you would have to get somebody to hang up so you can make a call on your phone. Wow. Thank goodness that things have changed since those days.
Well, there's so much in this room. Is there 1 or 2 items you want to just point out that's extra special? I know we can't hit everything in here.
No, it is hard to hit everything. I know you see all the different spices and things they used to have, and the patent medicines. The oyster cans, Billups brand was one of the very, very popular oyster brands here in Mathews. These oyster tins in half pint, quart, gallons, they sell for a lot of money nowadays. But this was a post office. Most of the general stores had post offices in them. And this was from the Diggs post office, Diggs, Virginia. And your mailbox is here. You'd come in and you'd have a key just like today. If you're in the mailbox, you'd go in and get your mail.
And then the penny candy
penny candy is about 50 cents nowadays for the penny candy the way I remembered it. These Lance containers are very, very popular. They've been out for well over 100 years. Of course, the merchandise in these is not that old, just filled up for appearance. But everything in here is authentic.
Well,
the milk bottles.
what's this brass thing on the floor,
That is a
sir?
spittoon. When people used to chew tobacco, and actually some people still do, a lot of use snuff now rather than chewing tobacco. But you had to get it out of your mouth, and the spittoon became the ashtray of a century or two ago. And you had guys that they could sit 10 or 15 feet away and they could hit the spittoon, and that was a mark of pride to be able to spit and hit the spittoon. But most of the time, it ended up all over the floor. So that was pretty messy.
Well, and I see there's some clothing and shoes and gloves. So the general store sold just about everything.
Just about everything. That's exactly right. It was the Walmart of its day. And you can see the old signs, if we don't have it, you don't need it.
Well, I'm just doing a slow pan here. I see Tide. There's still some products here that are sold nowadays.
Certainly, King syrup. They still have King syrup. Of course, it's not in metal tins; it's in plastic bottles now.
Yeah, let me get it. That's really big in Baltimore.
Yes, um, candy bars, shoelaces. Um,
Now, how about those cigars back there? They're pretty cool looking.
well,
Wow.
I've never been a smoker, so the cigar is something that I never would have had any interest in. But certainly, cigars are big in all throughout history, and virtually every general store and more modern uh, pharmacies. Up until recent years, pharmacies carried a whole selection of cigars for everyone, but you don't see many of them anymore. Now they have special stores, smoke shops with humidors for cigars. They're trying to make a comeback.
Well, this has been a wonderful tour. Before we close out, would you mind telling our viewers your hours and your location?
At the present time, we are open from 10 to 2 on Saturdays. Uh, when the weather gets better and the tourism starts picking up, we'll probably open what we did for the quilting exhibit. We'll be open Friday and Saturday from 10 to 2 and Sunday from 12 to 2. Uh, we're located at 200 Main Street, uh, right across from the Food Lion on Main Street, Mathews, Virginia. And we hope you'll come and see us.
All right, and Goober the Traveling Bears gives this place 4 paws up. It's an awesome site, and it's a wonderful museum with what you're doing here. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, be kind, be
And thank
courteous.
you.
Thank you for the tour, Mr.
Bye
Tom.
bye.
Well, Goober said that tour was incredible, but now it's time to rush to Scoot's Barbecue in Gloucester, Virginia to get some good barbecue food and tell Gary Ward how awesome the Mathews Museum is.